River Pra is today the main source of raw water that is treated by the Ghana Water Company's water treatment plant here in GWCL in the Wasa East District of the Western Region. But unfortunately, this is the state of water that is treated by the plant. A look at it tells you that the turbidity or the purity of this very water is in bad shape. This very pumping plant or the intake is where the water is actually pumped into the plant for processing. But a look at it shows that the pumping machines over here are having issues because the water state is what actually impacts on the pumping machine. And according to engineers over here, whenever the turbidity of the water is that bad, it also affects the efficiency of the pump. And for that matter, its ability to actually pump enough water into the plant for processing. We will be going inside the pumping room to actually see the states of the pumping machines and how they work. You could be seeing that it is very far below, and this is the state of the kind of water that the company has to actually treat for the general masses consumption. And as you can see, it is not really in good taste at all. According to the Ghana Water Company, these 4 pumps we actually see here at the intake point or the pumping room where the water is actually pushed from the river into the plant for processing. When these pumps have to deal with a very bad turbidity of the quality of water coming in here, the pump sometimes even gives up, and that affects the quantity of pumping that will actually happen here in the pumping room before the water actually gets to the plant. And the issue here is that for the pumps to actually do the work that they have to do, the turbidity of the water or the purity of the water should not be that bad. And whenever it is that bad, it has its own implication on the lifespan or the quality of work the pumps have to do. So now I've actually moved inside the GWCL water treatment plant proper, where we have 2 main settling tanks. The one actually on my right, I'm told, is supposed to, under normal circumstances, have about 3 million gallons of water. And this one on my left side is supposed to also have 3 million gallons of water. Inside here at the dividing chamber, I'm told this is where from the intake the raw water actually came into the plant. And over here, the water is actually mixed with alum before it moves straight into the settling tanks. And this very settling tanks has 2 chambers. You see the primary settling tank over there looks very dirty. I mean, the turbidity of the water over there is an issue. It goes through some kind of processing before it comes to the secondary chamber where the water actually settles. And then you see that there's a serious contrast between the state of the water from the primary chamber and the second chamber. And from here, I'm told it goes into that facility over there where several chemicals is actually applied. And don't forget, the Ghana Water Company has always been complaining that a lot of chemicals has to be actually used in processing the water before it gets to our individual homes, and that costs them money. And so for them, looking at the state of the turbidity of the water in the primary chamber before it comes to the secondary chamber, this is all cost to the states. And for such monies to actually be spent wisely, the issue of GWCL must be checked. It must be nipped in the bud for this country to cut down on the cost of water that is consumed.
The demand for water is between 15 and 20 million gallons of water a day. Sometimes I produce 2 million. As I told you, 2 million in a day. And sometimes the water doesn't produce at all. Nothing comes out. Because of GWCL illegal mining activities upstream the Pra River, there is so much silt accumulation at the intake. This silt deposit makes it very difficult for at least some amount of water to come to the intake. So instead of seeing water there, you would rather be seeing silt. And instead of our pumps abstracting water, instead of drawing water to the plant, it ends up taking silt, sand, into the plant. So this makes it very difficult for us to be able to get adequate quantities of water to abstract. Ghana Water Company, we ourselves cannot stop Galamsey.
So after touring the plant, we have come to the chemistry lab to actually see what actually goes through in terms of, the processes that the water that is taken, and the raw water goes through before it becomes, water that is close to something that we can consume. And over here at the lab, as you can see, we've been told that this very water in this glass is the raw water that came from the intake, and several chemicals is actually added throughout this series before we get something that is close to what can actually be considered water to be consumed. And that gives you an idea of the level of or the quantity of chemical expenses that the Ghana Water Company has to actually incur before we are able to get the water that we consume in our various homes. But even in this state, residents within Sekenita Crowd, they still have issues with the color of water that actually comes to them. And so we will be talking to them to find out what they make of the water that actually comes to their homes.
I had a offense, bully and a yesa. You been what was so pipe or hana ye two. And I feel so pipe on say Nino, and yet who says one in I poto, and tea bully and a yesa, dear Addy. Ain't he ever say a pipe on no bodos will crum hana, and so you to me I say, be named Nino soon, a bear ye are mine.
But Ghana Water and the man, then soon and yet I say, Yenina poto, and tea. Yes, I say, wine. Negalam say, no one shall not brand as a man.
Here in Intercrad, the availability of water now is very, very bad. In fact, about 2 months now, we are not getting water. Even if there is water, you can't even use it because the color of the nature of the water itself is very, very bad. We can't compare both the pipe water and the ground water because it's virtually the same. In fact, the activities that is going on in the Galamsey is really worrisome. Now, in fact, we don't get water. I don't know what I'm going to even use to bath this evening. In fact, you always have to rely on tankers and the rest.
Until the government stay committed to its promise to fight illegal small-scale mining here in Ghana, this is the kind of water the Ghana Water Company will have to continuously use in treating potable water for the consumption of residents of Sekenita Crowd metropolis. For Citi News, I'm Akwasi Jenim. Dabwase.